This is Barry Zalma speaking for Claims School Incorporated with another true crime story of insurance fraud. This number 27 is the long, hot spring. I present these videos so you can learn how insurance fraud is perpetrated and what is necessary to deter or defeat insurance fraud. All of these stories come from my 54 years in the insurance business, with the names and places changed to protect the guilty. In the spring of 1992, riots broke out in Los Angeles. Arson and looting persisted for 3 days until the National Guard was called in to bring peace to the streets. The insured, the owner and operator of a restaurant, saw the riots as an opportunity. Chez Expensive was in Hollywood. It catered to a small motion picture and television producers who gather along Highland Avenue between 3rd Street and Hollywood Boulevard. The motion picture business was bad. The television commercial business was bad. Chez Expensive began to see luncheon crowds of 3 couples. The insured was barely grossing enough to pay his rent. Late one night, early in May, sitting in his living room writing a check for the most recent installment on the premium financing for the restaurant's fire insurance, the insured began to smile. On television, he saw buildings on fire everywhere. Arson fires exploded at the rate of 1 per minute. The fires were breaking out in south central Los Angeles, Hollywood Boulevard, and even as far as Beverly Hills. The insured saw the riots and arson as a solution to his problems. The next morning, with the riots running rampant, he drove to his restaurant shortly after the curfew lifted. In the kitchen, he extinguished all of the pilot lights on the gas burners, the fryers, and the ovens. He then turned them all on full, and the strong odor of natural gas began to permeate the restaurant. He then went to the bar and got 2 bottles of brandy. He opened the bottles and made a trail from the kitchen to the back door. He locked the restaurant door behind him. With a Chez Expensive matchbook, he lit the trail of brandy and watched the flames run under the back door. He quickly got in his car and drove away. He heard the natural gas explode as he pulled out of the parking lot. From a safe distance, he watched his business burn to the ground. Fire engines busy with other fires throughout the city took 30 minutes to arrive. By the time the fire trucks arrived, Chez Expensive no longer existed. The insured calmly drove home and called his employees to advise them that the restaurant would not open that day because of the riots. He feigned shock and dismay when his night manager told him that he had seen the restaurant in flames on the Channel 5 news. Fortunately for the insured, the proof of his claim would be easy. He had taken the books of the business home with him on the night of the riots to do the end-of-the-month bookkeeping. He telephoned his insurance agent and reported he was afraid to go to his restaurant because of the riots. He told the agent that he had heard from his night manager the restaurant was burning on television. He could only assume the rioters and arsonists had decided to include him as one victim of their crimes. The insurance agent tried to put the insured at ease. He told him that the fire was clearly a covered peril on his policy. He also tried to comfort the insured. The agent reminded the insured that they had recently gone over the insurance package and determined he had adequate coverage for the building contents and for any losses he might incur for loss of earnings. The agent also recommended, if the insured thought he needed help, a public adjuster who could present the claim for him to the insurer. The insured accepted the advice of his agent and retained for only 5% of the proceeds a competent public adjuster. From his books, with the help of the public adjuster, he produced a sworn statement and proof of loss. He claimed a loss to the total value of his personal property and tenants' improvements and betterments in the restaurant for $1.2 million. Loss of earnings calculated on 12 months of the year 1991, when business was good, revealed an 8-month loss of earnings of over $500,000. Demand was made on the insurer. The insurer, whose claims department was stretched to its limit, retained a team of catastrophe insurance adjusters who flew in from Louisiana. These catastrophe adjusters had no background or experience in the Los Angeles area. They had no idea what a reasonable gross or net earnings for a restaurant in West Hollywood should be, and accepted the presentation of the public adjuster with minor modifications. The changes were only due to arithmetic errors intentionally made by the public adjuster to keep the insurer from looking more closely at the numbers presented. The insured recovered his entire investment in the restaurant and made a profit of over $400,000 on the claim. The insurer closed its file. It had no chance of discovering which of the many rioters were responsible for the fire. Suspicion never even approached the insured. He had successfully committed the perfect crime. Riots and civil commotion cause everyone hardship. Innocents suffer the most. Those with criminal intent, however, take advantage of the misery of others. This story, unlike all of the stories in this book, is purely fictional. After more than 54 years in the insurance industry, dealing with arson and insurance fraud almost continuously, I believe I can safely estimate that at least 10% of the 6,000 fires set in the 1992 Los Angeles riots were not caused by the rioters. I assume similarly that about 10% of the fires set by the BLM and Antifa activists in Portland, Seattle, and Minneapolis in 2020 were not caused by the rioters. It is a distressing comment on our society that in a time of civil unrest the innocent suffer. Usually honest and honorable people are tempted to steal from an insurance company and the criminals profit. In fact, one person during the riots was arrested for setting fire to his own grocery store because he was stupid enough to leave the security cameras on as he set the fire. At trial, he claimed that he set the fire as a signal to the LAPD to come and rescue him. And believe it or not, the jury agreed. And he was not arrested. He was not convicted. And in fact, he collected on his insurance money, and that was a real case. And based on those real cases, like the ones seeking help by setting fire to his business, this story was created because I couldn't use the ones that were true and real and the ones we actually caught. This video was adapted from my book, Insurance Fraud Costs Everyone, which is available as both a Kindle book and a paperback from Amazon.com. Thank you for your attention.